Hi.
Hello guys, if you're brand new to my channel, my name is Nikki and this is my book nook. Today we are talking about Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. This is actually the first fantasy book I've read in like 2 months, which is crazy. I don't know who I am anymore. I have like the rom-com bug right now. I blame book talk literally for everything in my life, but I am a fantasy girl through and through. YA fantasy is like what made me fall in love with reading, and this book really brought me back to that. So I want to talk to you guys about it today. This is going to be spoiler free because, as always, if I love a book, I want you guys to go and read it. So yeah, let's just talk about it. There is a literal stampede happening above me. I swear to God, my neighbors, like, I don't know what they do up there. They just like throw things and they just jump, and I'm confused. It always happens. So like I said, this book is called Red Queen and it is by Victoria Aveyard. I have followed Victoria Aveyard on TikTok for so long now. I actually had wanted to read this series for a while, but like I started following her right when she was coming out with Realmbreaker, which is her newest book and the newest start to her newest series. And I actually read Realmbreaker first and I didn't like it at all. So it made me really nervous for this series because so many people love this book and have talked about this book, and I was really excited to read it, but Realmbreaker just like wasn't for me. So I kind of like put off reading this, and I finally was in the mood for it, and I'm so glad that I did because I loved this book. So I feel like to talk about this book, we kind of have to like talk about the world that it exists in. It is a high fantasy. So basically like the premise of this world is that everybody is divided into kind of like 2 classes. It's the silvers and the reds. And the silvers have literally silver blood and the reds have normal red blood. And if you are a silver, they're basically like somewhat descended from the gods or something. They all have some form of like ability or power. Like I literally can't think of anything to compare it to other than like literally Winx Club Saga, like a fairy situation, because they have all these different powers. Like some of them can control water, some can control like metal, some can control plants, like electricity, like mind control. There's so many different possible abilities that these silvers have. It's really cool, really interesting. It almost gave me like Sky High vibes at times, like all the people displaying like all their abilities. That's so random, but it's the best way I can think to explain it. And the reds are just normal common folk. They don't have any special powers, and because of this like power dynamic, the silvers have kind of like overtaken the reds, and the silvers are like the kings and queens of this world basically. And this story follows a girl named Mare. She is a red. Her family is super poor. This world reminds me a lot of Hunger Games. Like that's just kind of like the main thing I think of, even though Hunger Games is just like dystopian future more. I wouldn't even say Hunger Games is really sci-fi. It's just kind of like dystopian future, like Divergent, like all those books have that very much future vibe. This is not dystopian future technically, like it's definitely just a fantasy, but it feels like a fantasy Hunger Games. Like that's the best way I can think to explain it. So Mare very much reminds me of like a Katniss sort of character. Her family is very poor and she basically helps them survive by stealing. She is like a master stealer. She steals things and she sells them to this man in town. It helps her get a little bit of money. It helps her family eat, and that's what she does. Without giving spoilers away, basically Mare comes into a situation where she ends up at the Palace of the Silvers in front of a lot of very important people, and like I said, she is a red blood, but it's basically revealed she has powers. Out of nowhere, she has a power, the power of like electricity, the ability of electricity, and everybody sees it happen, and nobody knows who she is, but so they know she's a red. How do I explain this? So yeah, she ends up shooting some sparks out of her hand, and everybody is like, what the heck, this girl is a red, how does she have powers? So basically the king and queen end up sort of kidnapping her. They force her to stay in the palace. They interrogate her. They're like, you are a red, how do you have powers? She's like, I don't know. It's very much kind of like a basic YA plot in the way of like, it's a girl that has a power that appears and I don't know where it came from, and not only does she have a power, but like she's different from all the people that have powers. Like it's very much that like premise that's done time and time again. but we all love. There's a reason it's done time and time again. I thought that it was really interesting. So pretty much, yeah, like they can see that her blood is red. She bleeds red, she has these powers, but like that's not heard of. If you are not silver, you do not have abilities. So basically the king and queen kidnap her. The king and queen have 2 sons. So there's 2 princes in this story, and they basically are forcing her to marry the younger prince. His name is Maven, and they're saying that they're gonna create this whole story because a bunch of very important people saw her have powers and they know that she's a red. They're going to basically come up with this story that she is a silverborn, but she was raised by reds. Basically her parents got killed when she was very young and she was raised as a red. She never knew she had powers, and now, but she's a silver and now she's marrying the prince. So, and they want her to kind of be like a political figure because she relates to the reds because she grew up with them and she grew up in that community, but she does have powers, so she's a silver. They basically see her as like a perfect pawn to use in like this political scheme. At the same time, very much again, Hunger Games like, there is this kind of rebellion that is spurring that is, I think it's called the Red Dawn. I'm completely blanking right now, but there's kind of this rebellion sparking at the same time of reds that are trying to kind of overthrow the government, and Mare is kind of a very important piece in that if she does choose to get involved. And there's a lot of things happening within this story. We have Maven, like I said, who she is betrothed to, but we have this other prince named Cal that Mare actually meets earlier on in the story, and they kind of have an instant connection, but she's kind of betrothed to his brother. And then Mare also has this friend since childhood named Kalorn that, you know, they're just friends since childhood. There's that deep love there. I mean, it's kind of a bit of a love square, if that term does exist. Overall, I really like this story. I will say I felt like there were times, Victoria Aveyard is like a very plot-driven writer. Like if you are a person that is huge on characters, which typically I am, like I prefer a more character-driven story versus a plot-driven story. Victoria Aveyard, she is like a screenwriter by education and like practice. She is like all about the plot, all about the world building, all about like, I don't even know how to explain it. Her mind blows my mind. I like that to some extent. For me, like Realm Breaker, the reason I didn't like it was literally all plot and no character. And for me, it just, I can't do that. I have to have some character. This story did have more character. I will say there is romance within this, but not a lot. I prefer a lot more. Typically, there's definitely some tension, there's definitely some angst, there's like some moments here and there, but if you're looking for like a really kind of tense, deep romance with lots of like moments, you're not gonna get that from this story. Like this is much more about the world building and just plot and the twists and the turns. I will say the twists and the turns make it worth it. Like there's so many things that happen that I just like didn't expect, and the magic system is really interesting. In the end, I gave this book 4.5 stars. I will say like towards the middle, I thought it kind of like lulled a little bit and I was getting a little like, oh, I don't know. But then like the end, it just went crazier and crazier, and I was just like, oh my God, I couldn't even keep up for a minute there because I was just like, there's so much happening. But yeah, I really love this book. I feel like this was like a super rambly review, but it's so hard to talk about a book like this because, like I said, just so plot driven, so much world building, and it's like I don't want to spoil anything or reveal much, so there's not too much I really can say. But all in all, I recommend this book for sure. If you like a YA fantasy and we're into anything like the Hunger Games, Divergent, any of those kind of dystopian future, like government overthrow sort of books, like this is like a perfect marriage of that and fantasy with a sprinkle of romance. I totally want to read the rest of the series, but I've heard from literally everybody that the series goes like super downhill, and I'm so sad about that because I really like the way this book ended. It made me like want to pick up the next book immediately. I probably won't. I'm sure it'll be a while before I read the next books, but yeah, if you guys read Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know if you think it's worth it for me to read the rest of the series. I really want to try it out. The covers are so pretty. Like I want them all on my shelf no matter what. The detailing, like the glitter, like the way it catches the light. I mean, it's a stunning book. But yeah, I think that is it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you all very soon. Bye.